Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Play EDH, the largest Discord server for webcam EDH games, and they've got an upcoming max power tournament we'll take a look at after round 1. So today's donation has been sitting in the queue for quite some time, waiting for the release of Thalia and the Gitrog monster. And Ellie, it's time. Your donation deck list is finally happening. We're going to try to make this fit into a Maverick shell. In case you haven't seen this glorious, glorious card before, First Strike Death Toucher, which is a savage combo. You can play an extra land each turn. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, and we're not out of words yet. Whenever Thalia and the Gitrog monster attacks, you sack a creature or land and then draw a card. So there's a lot going on here. It's kind of like a wall in combat. You know, First Strike and Death Touch means you're very good offensively and defensively. It lets you make extra land drops. It's a pseudo hate bear, and it's card draw all in one card. The downside here is obviously that this is a 4-mana legendary creature. So it's bounceable by Caracas for 1 mana. Someone can answer it with a Swords to Plowshares or something like that. Like, the card has downsides. I've played this card a little bit in EDH. I built a casual power level deck around her, them, ? And it was pretty solid. So let's see how it does in a 60 card constructed format. The overall shell that I used as a starting point here was Dan Neely's recent challenge win. I played that and I was somewhat happy with the results. I think I like 3-2'd or something like that, and it was a fine league. And I've made some changes to make Thalia and the Gitrog monster make more sense. Number 1, I cut Esper Sentinels and played a few more mana dorks, mostly Ignoble Hierarchs. I wanted to fit a couple more black sources into the deck to make sure that I could cast this when I had the opportunity to. So I thought that was an important starting point. And last time around when I played Maverick, I felt like the deck was still just a little bit too slow. And I just wanted that, like, coming out of the gates oomph, which I think a couple more mana dorks will give me. It will mean that I'm a little softer to something like a Terminus or a Supreme Verdict, but hopefully that doesn't matter too much at the end of the day. Otherwise, I think I added another black source in the form of a Bayou over Forest number 2 and made some very small sideboard edits. I had to take out some things that are like very reasonable in the deck in order to fit in some copies of Thalia and the Gitrog monster. Reasonably speaking, I think you can probably get away with playing one of these in Legacy. You're probably not supposed to play 2, but like, I want to make sure we get this card into play today. And like, we've got Fiend Artisan to find it, we've got Green Sun to find it. Like, let's see how good the frog is. Anyway, if you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing. And if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It is the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. Okay. Buckle up for just some good old-fashioned fucking Maverick gameplay. Mana Dork into Thalia Wasteland, into Cradle, Ramunap, more Wasteland. Fuck yeah. I miss this. Now I say this, and then my opponent is just going to like Dark Ritual Doomsday me, and I'll flip the table. Alright, this needs to be Savannah. I need white. We'll play a Hierarch. My opponent's on 5 cards, which tilts the needle towards something unfair. Womp. Okay. Thoughtseize probably takes my Thalia. Thoughtseize does take my Thalia. This is free. I just get to play this, and then Cradle will produce an extra mana. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and drop a Ramunap into play. So I have 4 power worth of attackers every turn. I have Wasteland for days. That is another swamp. I don't know what my opponent's doing. That's a good land to draw. Recycle that immediately. Guess I can make my attack first. I guess if I draw yet another Hierarch, that's not the best play in the world. Otherwise, it's probably okay. Draw a card. Okay. Play Outland Liberator and drop a Plague Engineer on... I don't even know. Construct? For Urza Saga tokens? What am I afraid of? Bantu's Last Reckoning? Okay, if you don't know what that card does. Not actually a real, like, legacy card. I, of course, have played it sometimes. Ooh. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can I get extra damage right now? No, I took Questing Beast out of my deck. Collector Oof's probably okay as a get. Yeah. Brings my opponent to 7. Theoretical lethal next turn. I'll cast it for 4. I don't know what I'm getting. Actually, I'm not going to cast it for that much. My opponent could Dark Ritual Opposition Agent, and my life could be more awkward. I'm going to cast this for 2. That way, if my opponent does have something, they get something smaller. I'm going to grab Collector Oof. This is still lethal next turn. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And stops like a Helm kill. I don't know exactly what my opponent is doing. I just published a nonsense video with like Phyrexian Obliterators. Like my opponent could be doing my thing. Alright, that is a Thoughtseize. You see nothing. Alright. Basic Swamps and Thoughtseize are all that I have to go off of here. My opponent mulliganed to 5, so it's a little hard to make like definitive statements about what they are doing. Could have been a bad Pox draw, could have been a bad mono black Helm draw. I know my opponent took Thalia off of Thoughtseize. Haven't seen my opponent search their deck yet. Alright, I don't know. I'm going to board a Plague Engineer out, an Opposition Agent in, assume that that is perfect sideboarding. No lands, auto mulligan here. Second hand looks reasonable. Throwing back 1 Windswept Heath, I believe. Alright, another Thoughtseize. This is the only spell I have seen my opponent cast so far. And they're a hater and they don't like my Thalia. I believe it is correct to play around Opposition Agent to the best of my ability here. So I'm going to go ahead and fetch, grabbing a Bayou now. Then I will have all of my colors. I can go ahead and grab a Dryad Arbor. Pass the turn, and my plan is going to be work towards Fiend Artisan for maybe something like a Thalia. Again, I just don't have like matchup knowledge yet. I don't know what my opponent is doing. Okay. My opponent's deck is like 24 lands and 36 copies of Thoughtseize. I'm convinced. Verdant Catacombs is not a particularly strong draw. Riot Arbor beats. Show me something that lets me know what deck you're playing. Although, honestly, right now it doesn't matter. I have borderline no actual decisions. No land. Make a land drop. Play Ignoble Hierarch. And make a slightlier Angry Tree get in there for damage. It's just really weird that my opponent isn't taking game actions. This is tilting the needle towards this being a combo deck of some kind, but like in the number of turns that I've seen happen, they should have done something else other than Thoughtseize, right? Alright, unmask targeting themselves. Oh, shit. Okay. I see what's going on here. Alright, so this is a Tin Fins variant, which is an instant speed reanimation deck. And that's pretty rough. So, I'm going to lose 15 life and 5 permanents here. And this very much resets the game in favor of my opponent. And they will just reanimate one of my creatures to end this game. Like 2 hits with a Thalia will just do it. Huh. Goes Animate Dead over Reanimate, which means that this is a 1-1, so that's a 4-turn clock instead of a 2-turn clock. It really be a 1-turn clock as long as my opponent draws another mana source for this. Okay. That's a 2-turn clock that instead requires 2 cards. I don't think that was played the tightest by my opponent, but I also don't think it matters after you get an Emrakul attack. Okay, now I can sideboard properly. Now I know what's up. Deafening Silence and Surgical are probably pretty reasonable. More copies of Endurance are good. Force of Plowshare is not super at its best. Sorcery Speed, Grist, Answer, also not really at its best. I haven't seen the Artifact mana yet from my opponent, but like it's definitely there. I'm gonna go Swords out, Path in. Not a Life from the Loam matchup. Oh, Thalia and the Gitrog monster is actually incredibly good here, because it's going to make my opponent's creatures enter tapped, which means they don't do a lot from Shallow Grave. I probably keep one of Grist or Palace Jailer. I probably don't do both. Ramunap's not the best here. Go Ramunap and Jailer out. Grist is less expensive to green Sun for. One Night? Maybe one Night? I don't know. Caracas is really good here. Having trouble with my last cut. Gonna make it Collector Oof? Not sure on that. This hand has an Endurance to start with, and like Mana Dorks and Thalia. This one gets a thumbs up from me. Leading on Savannah and then one of the 2 Hierarchs. I think it can safely big Ignoble here. And I am hoping to play both Noble Hierarch and Thalia next turn. Alright, there is a Grief. Probably losing Endurance. Yep. If my opponent's interested in just like reanimating that to take another one of my cards. Oh, nope. Yeah, that's bad. So these are my opponent's 3 cards. They reanimate Grizzlebrand. And they are going to keep drawing. They need to hit a discard spell or I put a Knight of the Reliquary into play. Okay, they discard an Archon. I will go ahead and dump Knight of the Reliquary into play so I can tutor up Caracas to bounce Grizzlebrand. But next turn's gonna suck for me. Alright, they unmask me. Lose a little bit more interaction. I need things to go right for me here. That is a Collective Brutality, which means Grizzlebrand gets to just run free. And I'm probably not beating it. Ugh. Alright. Let's try to find like a path to exile. Nope. I mean, I'll keep playing until my life total is reduced to 0, but not on too many outs here. My opponent's turn 1 was very good. It went off through my hate that I kept my hand. Like, my strength of my hand came from Endurance. And without that, the rest of the hand was just too slow to keep up with Grizzlebrand. I think now with 2 creatures in play, I'm on 0 outs. Alright, there is some artifact mana in here. Alright, Shallow Grave means I am dead this turn. I will go ahead and concede. GG's. Love seeing some tin fins. Today's video is sponsored by Play EDH. Now, if you're not doing anything on Saturday, May 13th, from maybe 11 a.m. to 5 o'clock or so, please consider playing in the Play Max 4 tournament they are sponsoring. It is a maximum power EDH event held via webcam. Please check out their Discord server, Play EDH, if you're interested in more info. All right, back to the magic. All right, I have a pretty reasonable looking hand here. We'll go ahead and keep this one. Grab Savannah and go get a Dryad Arbor and pass the turn. Prismatic Vista from my opponent, so probably a air blue control deck, but it could be a lot of things. I think I'm just gonna play an Endurance at my opponent's end of turn. I think my plan is make them react to Endurance and then play an early Palace Jailer and hope that goes somewhere. Alright, go my glorious green elemental. Got a fetch. Which, going to let me put that land back in their deck. We've got gas. Alright. Hit for 3. I don't know that I'm super comfortable playing Palace Jailer into just like Appcaster Mage and friends. Let's cast a Green Sun for something. What am I getting here? Grist. Probably Grist against these cards. Yeah, Spell Pierce was always going to get that, even if I did it for 2. Alright, no end of turn Swords to Plowshares, so I kind of feel like my opponent doesn't have swords. There is a Brainstorm, and the fetch to clear it. Alright, Staff of the Storyteller. This is like the perfect Palace Jailer opportunity, where I can try to just like take over this game. Yeah, I'm into this. I'm gonna go ahead and pay the 1 life here. I'll go ahead and exile that token. I'll become the Monarch. I'll attack in for 4. And I get to start drawing cards. I have felt that this card is just like so painfully slow. That one isn't though. Ooh, that's a lot of mana. Fiend Artisan is largely free here. Let's go ahead and play that. I will play a Cradle. Do this for X is 3. I'm playing around Spell Pierce. There's Grist. Grist minus. Alright, Swords Endurance in response. That's fine. Goodbye. Back Dryad Arbor. Roy Mentor. Go ahead and turn this into a card. I technically should have floated a mana with Dryad Arbor here in case this exact card is Swords to Plowshares, which it wasn't. Am I holding back? I don't think so. I think I'm the beat down here. So my opponent is in the situation where if they remove my Fiend... Oh, that's a very good draw. If they remove my Fiend Artisan, they can choose to become the Monarch, or they can choose to get rid of my Grist. Prismatic Ending is fine. Yeah, but if they just like leave my Grist around, it's kind of a big deal. And all I want to do here is end this game before their Staff of the Storyteller matters. Like so far they paid 2 mana for a 1/1 token. Alright, which way are they going? Alright, they're going for me for the Monarch. That's fine. Draw a card with Staff. And they do have a follow-up play. That is a Swords. That is a good turn cycle for them. I'll go ahead and plus with a Grist. Go ahead and fetch in some land out of my deck. Bayou for variety sounds fine. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and play a Thalia here. And that will then make Plague Engineer uncounterable. So I can go for Monk or I can go for Spirit. I think I'm going to go for Monk since it is just on board. Now I have 3 creatures on board with an active Planeswalker and a Caracas to protect Thalia. So let's see what my opponent can do. 6 Sanctuary here wouldn't be surprising. Red mana. Also not surprising. Take your card. There's Prismatic Ending on Grist. Means all the rest of my stuff is now safe. My opponent can draw another card for being the Monarch. But I am about to become the Monarch and drop them to 2 life. Which again, I think very drastically favors me. They're at 2. I go to my end step, draw a card. Wasteland's not great. I love seeing 2 mana Brainstorm. Okay. Seems like it's my turn now. We'll see if there's another Brainstorm in their upkeep and some sort of Terminus type card. Am I knocking them off of their red completely? Or just attacking a Tundra? Their red probably doesn't matter against me. I'm going to go for a Tundra, at least not in game 1. Alright, let's attempt to change phases here. A Snapcaster Mage. Targeting swords. I just send them all. Yep, this is fine. Then my opponent swords Thalia. And so I go ahead and bounce Thalia. Alright. This drops my opponent to 1. I will deploy a new Thalia. And I think the plan is go wide here. Already made a land drop this turn, right? I played Wasteland. Yep. Take an extra card. Wastelands are perfectly reasonable. This feels like Legacy of like 4 or 5 years ago. Alright. I like Questing Beast here for the haste and the fact that it gets through the little idiots. I don't know that I go for Force of Vigor or getting rid of things like Staff, but I think I'm fine with like Knight of Autumn, Collector Roof, Liberator. Just don't think I want a 2-for-1 myself. Endurances and Plague Engineers are perfectly reasonable. Path is like, eh. I'd rather play a Swords on something like a Monastery Mentor, but might go that direction. I don't know what I don't want here, because I don't know what my opponent is playing in terms of things like sweepers. Probably don't need Loam. Probably go down a Knight. Probably go down a Thalia. Probably go down a Mana Dork. At this point, let's sort this. 4 Endurance is a lot. 3 Endurance. Maybe I'm supposed to play Opposition Agent too. I'm going to ship this. This doesn't do anything. I'm not happy with it. I think I'm gonna keep it. Like, this is not my ideal, but I have a lot of mana in the deck, so maybe keeping something that has a lot of action like this is just perfectly reasonable. So let's get that tree right back. Ooh, tree does not immediately eat swords to plowshares. That's nice. We'll see what my opponent has for me. Nothing, they're just fetching around an opposition agent. I don't like this turn. I think I green sun for a mana dork. That gives me the best options in terms of double spelling next turn. That'll let me like play a mana dork and a Thalia or something like that. No plays from my opponent yet. And now I have to keep in mind that like Terminus could be involved. Never mind. Opponent continuing to fetch around opposition agent. All right, let's start on Thalia. That makes the rest of my opponent's turn more awkward. Then I think I'd go ahead and deploy another Hierarch. Very much in the situation where a Terminus just punches me in the gut. Same with Supreme Verdict. But like, that's usually just going to be true. Alright, ending on Thalia. That certainly could have been worse. Wasteland has no targets currently. I have 5 mana. I always play that. Turn's a little awkward. I think I do a Green Sun for 2, so that I am playing around a Spell Pierce. Just grab a Fiend Artisan, play a Thalia, and then I can convert Fiend Artisan into whatever I need next turn, assuming I don't eat Supreme Verdict. Which will be rough if it happens. Yeah. At least I get to play a chonky Fiend Artisan, but, like, historically speaking, the bane of Maverick decks has always been sweepers, because you're trying to, like, play to the board with, like, Mana Dorks, Mother of Runes, Scrib Rangers, Knights, Stoneforges, whatever. And what are we looking at? Jace. Jace is rough. I just down ticks on my Fiend Artisan for a few turns. Alright. Land drop. Tempt Fiend Artisan again. I will attack my opponent's mana. I don't think it does a ton, but I think I have to do it. There's a Containment Priest. Sure. I'm just going to remove that now before my opponent gets to untap, and then just like has the ability to just cast a Force of Will without pitch casting. Alright, so now Fiend Artisan gets bounced by that, and Jace can start brainstorming. This is very bad. Okay. I'm probably going to concede this game pretty quickly. Like, my opponent got like a 5-for-1 with Supreme Verdict, which is obviously a disaster. I'll play out a couple more turns, but basically I need a Questing Beast. Questing Beast clearing both of these Planeswalkers at the same time will win me the game, but outside of that, like, I'm probably donezo. Yep. Okay. Oh, my opponent's confident enough to start Fate Sealing me. That's a bad sign. I go to 17. Alright. Once again. Ooh. Oh, it's just a card draw. Sure, that's fine. But yeah, the old 1 sorcery speed creature versus both of these onboard planeswalkers is not really a thing. Okay, yeah, my opponent's attacking in. They've got removal or whatever. Alright, more Fate Sailing. Okay. Oh, another Verdict, sure. I will play the creature that I draw. I think I concede to the next thing that my opponent has. Like, I think once they play, like, a Mentor or something else or another Staff, I just don't really come back from another piece of card advantage here. Very Mastermind. Sure. That is larger than my stuff, and they can start doing this draw card ability so that they draw more cards. Okay, I mean, show me your Force of Will. Just cast it. Just cast it. Guess poke to Fairy? Alright, my opponent's going to trade away the Fairy. Dress down gets sacrificed. I am not the Monarch. Sadness resolves. Miracle Terminus. I'm not technically dead, but I think this is miserable enough that I'm willing to throw in the towel for the sake of entertainment. I know my opponent has Fairy Mastermind now. I also know they have Containment Priest. I think my deck configuration is approximately okay, but it like does super suck that I'm playing this many mana dorks with like the build that I'm trying to do. My hand is unimpressive, but I will probably just go ahead and keep it here. It is turn 2 creature into turn 3 creature with a safety net removal spell for something like a Mentor that my opponent plays out. I think my opponent is slightly favored with me keeping this hand, but I don't know that it is worth going down a card when my opponent has such potent 2-for-1 effects in their deck. That's a very poor draw. Such potent 2-for-1 effects as Supreme Verdict and Terminus. And like, if I mulligan and then play out a bunch of mana dorks to the board and those get swept up, like that is going to just be worse than this hand, I think. So like, this is very clearly not my ideal of like mana dork into Thalia Wasteland or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and attack into a Snapcaster Mage or a Fairy Mastermind or whatever. That didn't happen. In which case, I will go ahead and fetch, grab a new land, and drop a knight. All right, no end of turn Brainstorm. New land drop for my opponent. There's a Swords, and will there be a follow-up spell? A Prismatic Ending. All right, board's clear. I need a piece of gas. That counts. Drop Thalia. But yeah, every card that isn't a threat here is pretty rough for me. And I'm not drawing my mana dorks early, which means I'm going to draw them later on. Not when I want to draw them. At this point, I would like something like Thalia's Big Sister. I mean, yeah. Okay. All right. Opponent's at 13. And she has arrived. Black, green, white, some other color, double Thalia. And now I can start converting lands into other card draws. That's a Force of Will. Yep. Now my opponent is at 12 here. So if I can keep top decking some threats, there's a lot of hope for me. That's pretty miserable. Okay. This is the sort of stuff that I need. I need to just be able to play 2 threats in the same turn and overpower this Jace. I'm stone cold dead to a Supreme Verdict. But that's basically going to be true any turn of any game that I ever play with Maverick. That's going to be Snapcaster Swords. Sure. And I will go ahead and Swords their Snapcaster in response so that they don't get to Jace bounce it later. And then I just need to top deck another threat again. Sure. Questing Beast in particular would be hot. Hey, that's last turn again. There's the Thalia. And there's the Fiend Artisan. Again, super dead to Supreme Verdict, Terminus, whatever. Jace potentially has to just Brainstorm this next turn, which would be good for me. So I assume this is going to be Mystic Sanctuary to put like a Prismatic Ending on top of their deck. I am correct. Oh, they just had one in hand, I see. So now they Brainstorm into the other one. Yep. Alright, let's draw a green sun. Alright. I'm gonna pass the turn. If I pass the turn, Force of Will becomes more of a problem. I'm just gonna remove that now. I don't think I want to give my opponent the opportunity to interact with that thing's ability when, with a lot of their draws, I get to go and just eat their Jace. Staff is a draw that prevents that. Ugh. Then that triggers both of these. So I'll play this and throw a whole bunch of lands back into my opponent's deck. A Wasteland is not what I'm looking for. I probably just lose to the staff at this point. Like, my opponent gets to draw an absurd number of cards between Jace and 2 copies of staff. They don't have that much mana, but in theory, I don't think that matters. Like, I take 1 from this, go to 23. There's a Supreme Verdict. Yeah, okay, this game's over. And now I just have to decide whether or not I want to play out a couple more turns. I think the answer is yes. Like, it's fucking miserable, but I am, again, on this, like, a questing beast immediately wins me this game line. But otherwise, like, my opponent just gets to do this. Sure. There's a Jace Brainstorm on top of this. Like, my opponent will absolutely just bury me in card advantage at this point. Unless I top deck well. Ugh. I'll play 1 more turn cycle, I think, and then concede if I don't draw something good. Yeah, definitely just, like, feeling how much power Supreme Verdict has against me. Like, Staff of the Storyteller could have been anything, just, like, the 4th one is Insult to Injury. But, like, the staff could have been anything. This onboard Jace that I couldn't check was the problem, not the staff. Like, my opponent is going to end this game with a billion counters on here that they never had to activate. All right, and with another land drop there, I am just going to go ahead and throw in the towel. GG's. Okay, in a bit of a difficult spot with this mulligan decision because I really want another actual land. This hand is full of gas, and if my mana dork doesn't get removed, it's okay. But I think I can just have a more consistent hand on 5 cards. Yeah, this hand's very good. Big Thalia goes back. I think it's Fiend Artisan here. I think this is, like, the maverickiest of mavericky hands. Of just, like, go get a Dryad Arbor, play a Thalia, play something slightly bigger, and kind of hope it works out. If my opponent uses initial removal on the Dryad Arbor, these 2 cards are more likely to stick around. Undra? So because of the existence of cards like Daze, I am going to play a pre-combat Thalia. My opponent can respond by Swordsing Dryad Arbor, and sometimes I miss 1 point of damage for doing something like that. Otherwise, this is pretty good. Now, after watching last round, you probably don't need me to tell you this, but if my opponent's playing Supreme Verdict, I'm fucked. Just, like, stone cold, never going to win this match. This feels like my opponent has Prismatic Ending for Thalia. Oh shit, it's Stoneforge Mystic. That's arguably worse. I'm not very good at beating Cauldron right now. Oh shit, it's Shuko. We're playing against Cephalid Breakfast. I'm not particularly well suited to deal with that with the hand that I have here. My opponent's at 16. I have to live in fear of Cauldron just naturally being in my opponent's hand forever. I also have to live in fear of a combo. But not Supreme Verdict. So I got that going for me. I can Wasteland that. Or Wasteland that. Or both. The rare 2-mana hardcast Shuko, my opponent is not equipping it. Which is probably just objectively speaking a mistake. I'll buy you. Oh shit! Sorry, not sorry, opponent. This is gonna fucking suck for you. Nuke your Tundra. Yeah, you may float a mana. That'll go away. Actually, basic forest can go here. Actually, Dryad Arbor isn't doing shit, right? Like, this is just never attacking while this is around. Yeah, let's just ship this away. Pick up Wasteland, Wasteland Saga, bash in with Thalia. We have some amount of control on my opponent's mana here. They are down to 1 color. They are down 2 lands from what they were at last turn. That feels like an early concession, but maybe not that early with 8 power on board. I guess ultimately I'm glad that my opponent either didn't get Caldra or didn't have access to Caldra with how that one played out, but that Wasteland top deck was pretty lucky on my end. So, we're playing against Cephalid Illusionist Combo, aka Cephalid Breakfast. Opponent has a Thassa's Oracle based win. I have a lot of things that do some stuff sometimes. And I know that's like super vague, but like everything over here is something that technically has text versus my opponent's stuff that's relevant. I think this is not the time for Big Thalia. I think those are going. I think Ramunap's going. I feel like I'm going to have to cut at least 1 mana dork here. Make room. I don't think I play Path. Maybe I don't play Force of Vigor. I have trouble boarding against Cephalid Breakfast. Life from the Loam can probably go. I don't know, Force of Vigor is so good versus Urza Saga Construct tokens. If I go away from Deafening Silence, I could play a Force of Vigor or 2. 1 Fiend Artisan. I'm still of the opinion that Fiend Artisan sucks in this deck. I don't think I've ever successfully activated a Fiend Artisan. Cool when other people do it, but me, I don't get to do that. This is unexciting. Like, it's fine if my opponent plays a non-basic land, but otherwise, again, Fiend Artisan's super slow. This starts doing things on turn 3 unless I spike a mana dork. I think I'd rather just have a starting hand that has a mana dork. This is unexciting, but I think keepable. I can tutor up Cradle later if I feel like I need it, but if my opponent starts interacting with me, a Cradle is just worse than some land. I will Wasteland it. Basically, no matter what my draw is, I Wasteland that. Like, my opponent took a mulligan already. There's like a 50-50 chance that that Ponder is looking for land. Yeah, especially after a shuffle. Wasteland the shit out of that. I gain pleasure from this. Alright. So now we're just like looking to reset the game where I'm up another card for being on the draw, and I just try to work towards like getting these disruptive cards into play. Okay, my opponent hit a land drop, so it's not just instantly a non-game. And let's see where this goes. I'm at the point where I don't particularly want to draw more lands. Unless it's Wasteland. I'll draw more Wastelands. Alright, Stoneforge happens. Does my opponent have Cauldra this game? Oh, it's another Shuko. I'm going to just grab a Savannah out of my deck. I think I just play Thalia here. It makes my Green Sun worse, but I have cool things that I can cast. I need black here. Probably like a Bayou. We jam Thalia. Got some game versus artifact stuff. I have some game versus opposing lands. That is a Cephalid Illusionist. So my opponent has a Shuko that they can't currently cast. Ooh. Oh, I think my opponent just lost the game. So they're going to mill themselves out in an attempt to Dread Return me. And then they're going to realize that they don't actually have mana to do that. Because Dread Return costs 1. And they're going to lose the game for that. They figured it out. So, I can destroy Urza Saga. I can Green Sun for Collector Oof. That doesn't do anything. Can't tax out Dread Return here. I think I just have to pass Bluffing Endurance. And hope that that buys me time to get to actual Endurance. That shouldn't happen. Alright, there's a land drop, and my opponent should just, like, very clearly be able to finish this combo off here. Okay, there is the Thassa's Oracle. The Dread Return isn't there yet. Oh, there it is. Never mind. Yeah, I don't actually have the endurance. GG. Alright. Do I want surgicals or paths in this game? I don't know that I want fucking Fiend Artisans. They feel so bad. They're just so slow in a relatively fast-paced matchup. I think on the play I want this last Ignoble Hierarch. And I think on the play I will try to disrupt the graveyard. Alright. I am unhappy with this hand. I'm also keeping it. Every single one of my 3-drops is quite strong as a draw. My green suns are strong. I have Wasteland. I get to thin the deck of a Bayou on turn 1. Like, it's not great. I also don't know that it goes back. And like, this was kind of why I didn't want surgicals in the first place, is if I lower my density of threats too much, I start to get hands that look like this that are just too reactive. Alright, there's a Nomads. Slightly awkward. I'm pretty sure I can just leave that in play for a turn and Wasteland my opponent. Getting Bayou on turn 1 so that I could potentially hardcast the Surgical a little bit later on. Hit me in the butt for double spelling this turn because I can't just like Swords to Plowshares. And so next turn I'll have to choose between Endurance and Swords, which is just like not great for me. Alright. There's a land drop from my opponent. I assume, oh, no love tap. Play Outland Liberator. I'll go ahead and play Outland Liberator and hold up it and Swords. Telegraphs that I have Swords pretty badly because otherwise I would have attacked with Ignoble Hierarch, but a pretty decent chance my opponent doesn't necessarily cast a spell on their own turn, and then this gets to transform into Frenzied Trap Breaker. Brainstorm's fine. There's Urza Saga. I will respond to Illusionist by go ahead and getting rid of that. Alright, there is a Force of Will. Now my opponent gets to start doing their thing. It will be my plan to go ahead and rip a Thassa's Oracle out of their deck. You may have your Narcomoeba. I didn't see a Cabal Therapy last time around. Oh shit, there is a Cabal Therapy. I just have to Surgical Dread return now, so that Thassa's Oracle can't enter play this turn. Alright, so they have a Swords in hand. They have one Thassa's Oracle in their deck, which they are going to have to naturally draw. And 4 cantrips to help find it. Okay, cool. Alright, they've named Thalia. That's fine. Hello, Thalia. What a noble creature. I will go ahead and attack on in with an effective 3/3 here. Opponent takes the damage, and I will deploy a Thalia. My opponent has a Swords to Plowshares in hand, but does not actually have the mana required to cast that. Okay, and my opponent throws in the towel. GG's. Alright, round 4 here. I have a reasonable mix of lands and spells. A sweeper or multiple smaller removal spells taking me off of my initial creatures will make this hand like significantly worse. Arid Mesa. That's an uncommon land. I believe I lead on Windswept Heath and pass the turn here. This gives me the flexibility to fetch for basic planes if it looks like my opponent is playing Burn, which is my first thought when I see Arid Mesa. It's like Burn or maybe a red-white initial. Fuck me, Jeskai control. I'm going to take one more draw step before I decide what to do with this. Alright, let's fetch. Didn't get stifled. Savannah be better against Wasteland? Worse against Back to Basics? I think better against Wasteland matters here. I don't know what my opponent is playing though. Like, Jeskai control is my guess, but no play? Sneak and show? Arid Mesa is like the off fetch land? Free combat Knight of the Reliquary, so I'm guaranteed to be able to use Gaea's Cradle as mana? Game's fucking weird. Alright, it's in play. Bash with Thalia. My opponent goes to 18. I fear my own demise. My opponent's going to cast Show and Tell, have Omniscience, and then my Palace Jailer doesn't fucking matter. Oh, no, it's Plains. Back to basics. Well, I talked about that earlier. Turn kind of sucks for me. Yeah. Basic Forest. Play Dork. Bash in for 3, rather than the 5 that I actually had this turn. But I just have to get Forest and Plains so that I can reasonably continue to play Magic. Supreme Verdict fucks me so hard. Please don't have it. Can't deal with playing against 2 different Supreme Verdict decks in one league. I am so very, 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 very dead to Supreme Verdict. So we're just going to, like, basically ignore the fact that Supreme Verdict is a card that could possibly exist in my opponent's deck list and attack with a 4-power Thalia. Alright, they're at 9. Shit. Ooh. 5, 6, 7, 8 showing damage. I don't think I can get a 9th showing damage. Oh, no, nope, nope. Playing with these 2. Oh, that's just straight up a 2/2 blocker. I will let you have that. You may gain some life. I'm a generous god. And then I'm going to start this Monarch sub-game. I have Swords to Plowshares to defend it if my opponent has another Snapcaster Mage. But this just helps me recoup from back to basics. Just another land drop. Is it fucking Hardcast Terminus? It is Hardcast Terminus. Got it. Dryad Arbor? Feels like Dryad Arbor. An awkward draw. I think I just do this. Hit my opponent for 1. I have ways to get rid of this, but I'd rather do the Green Sun in one shot. I guess that Dryad Arbor was only worth 1 point of damage, though. Grist is really cool. Can't cast it yet. It is a very powerful card, in theory. That is a Wasteland. I think this is the point where I go ahead and do this for 2. And pick up the Outland Liberator. That will be able to destroy back to basics. This is a really big turn for my opponent to find a removal spell. Because I think if I get to untap these lands, they're just never winning. Alright, they get 4 looks at an answer to this card. You should be able to find an answer. That was no shuffle. Alright. Attempt attack. That is a Snapcaster Mage. Targets a Swords to Plowshares. My opponent goes to blocks. I'm going to go ahead and cast a Swords to Plowshares, targeting Snapcaster Mage. You may absolutely respond by swordsing my creature. I will respond by blowing up back to basics. So my opponent left me with the Dryad Arbor that they didn't need to leave me with. And that Dryad Arbor is about to untap. I'm also about to get a couple more lands and maybe a Grist. Ooh, Swords was their draw. Oh, this means I get Grist, baby. Grist on empty board. Let's go. Get a black source. 1, 2, 3. Play Grist. Plus Grist. Play Thalia. Alright. My opponent has had enough of my bullshit. We're very lucky to have beaten that Terminus. I am very happy that I was able to start the Monarch sub-game and hold it. I need Questing Beast here. I want Knight of Autumn as another out to back to basics. And then, like, some of this stuff is reasonable but not exciting. Collector Oof can probably go. One has too many basics for Life from the Loam to actively be good. Fiend Artisan sucks and is unplayable in Legacy, so we should probably board all of those out. In all seriousness, though, like, my opponent is exiling my creatures and, like, can wipe my board. I'm pretty unlikely to build up, like, the Gaia's Cradle mana that I need to, like, make this thing do its stuff. I'm probably going to cut literally all of them here. I could stay slightly more threat dense and cut some swords. Swords isn't particularly good here. I still kind of want them. I haven't seen enough of my opponent's deck to know, like, what their finishers are. Fairy Mastermind is picking up in popularity. I've seen some mentors running around. They're dead, they're not that dead. This has a lot of mana. I don't really know that it's a mulligan, though. Like, Thalia is quite good in the matchup. I'm just like, oh, we've gone deep into the miracles. They draw their card. Oh god, I don't want to fucking draw Cradle in this matchup. Wonder if I'm supposed to board Cradle out. Like, is it that actively bad that I do just board it out? Fine. So every time that my opponent casts something like this, I just have to be cognizant of the fact that Terminus may be coming. 100% of the time I want this to be basic planes to just preemptively hedge against back to basics. It locks me out of casting a Fiend Artisan if I draw one, but I basically always want to cast a Thalia into my opponent's one open white mana in case they have Swords to Plowshares. They did not fetch. Their next card down can still be Terminus. I might... Okay, not anymore. Alright, there's Swords, so we kind of played around that last turn. And now we can do a Green Sun for a medium number or play a Knight of the Reliquary this turn. I think my Green Suns are more attractive at higher mana values. I think I'm going to go ahead and Knight this turn. It's not the world's biggest Knight or anything, but it's big enough to pressure a Planeswalker that my that one's just blind. That's unfortunate. But honestly, it's no worse than my opponent just drawing a removal spell here. That was a 1-for-1. The scariest part about my opponent drawing Terminus is that Mystic Sanctuary for Terminus is a line that's going to be available in future turns. Alright, Plague Engineer is not exciting. Probably just a Green Sun turn. Endurance to clear Graveyard or Grist to do Grist things. I think Grist to do Grist things. And we'll just start plussing with that. It starts increasing the number of things in my graveyard. This lines up better versus like Supreme Verdict and Terminus, but this lines up worse versus some random threat that my opponent plays out. Council's Judgment. Boo. Not a fan of the decision of the council here. And I think I'm going to be in the position where in order to pressure my opponent enough to be presenting a clock that's actually threatening, I have to play out probably everything I have or very close to it. I think I start here and just cycle a card, though. Okay. Thalia is great. Play a Hierarch, again, like in very bad shape against board wipes here. But I think if I don't dump all these creatures into play, I'm just way too soft to a single Source of Plowshares or Prismatic Ending. Yeah. So... we have rediscovered the fact that Maverick sucks against board wipes. We have rediscovered that ancient technology, which is good. I have to make sure the youngins know. I'll Plague Engineer, I guess, on human. Now my opponent gets less value off of Snapcaster Mage, but I'm really only looking at an attack for 3 here, which is not a fast enough clock. And my graveyard's not that big for something like... Oh, hey, value. Yeah, so now I'm down to an attack for 1. Ick. Okay, at least I can answer that immediately. Your last card is Spell Pierce. You got me. It was not Spell Pierce. A 1/1 like Monk Prowess token is still pretty good, though. I definitely feel good about leaving in all 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares now. Another land drop. Ugh. We're in Flood City, USA. It is turn 7. My opponent's at 17 life. They are incredibly favored. They have 2 cards to my 0 currently. And a faster clock and better selection. Alright. I will do my due diligence and take 2 from the monk. And hope the top of my deck looks nice. Thank you, deck. I have no real reason not to play these. Look, Brainstorm in my deck, don't have any landfall stuff. Yeah, but my opponent has the better clock here. Which is, like, rare to say of the control deck. They have revealed their Terminus. Oh wow, they're actually going to cast it. I mean, sure, I'm like very happy with that interaction. Now I'm not taking chip damage. Go Gadget, Outland Liberator. Yeah, I would have just drawn that Terminus and held it in hand. Holy shit. I am so happy with these interactions. Like, Outland Liberator is not worth a Force of Will. That card is not good. Whereas this card is quite good. When I play it is kind of a weird question because of this problem. I'm going to just play it now because I think I need to attack my opponent, but like, they can now fix a draw with Mystic Sanctuary if they want. But playing it out at sorcery speed oh, no Mystic Sanctuary. Playing it out at sorcery speed means that I play into Prismatic Ending as removal, which I also would not be happy with. Alright, get in there. Opponent's at 11. I'm going to go ahead and hold this. Oh shit, did that represent Dryad Arbor? If that represented Dryad Arbor, I should have played that. Play it this turn. Punish with the Wasteland draw. Vendilion click. Absolutely. You may click me. We're in weird situation territory now. Where I have this Caracas, which can bounce Vendilion click, but bouncing Vendilion click is super awkward. I think I offer a trade. I just, like, I don't know that playing this bounce game forever is going to actively favor me. Yes, and it would have immediately not favored me. Or this makes the Dryad Arbor fetch significantly worse. I'm not going to do that. Noble Hierarch is not particularly strong here. I don't think I wasteland my opponent. I think each one of my lands matters more than their 8th untapped land. There's a Snapcaster Mage targeting a cantrip. That's fine. I need a Haymaker here. That's not a Haymaker. I don't really want to use the swords on this. Like, this is not conceptually the thing that I want to be targeting in this matchup. But this is all I'm working with right now. I've got table scraps here. So I think I just start pecking away at my opponent. Alright, GG's. That's 6 angels. I do not beat that. Alright. Fortunately, we have to play a game 3 here. I could bastardize my mana and do something like bam, 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 make myself earlier in the early game to have better mid-game top decks, but Fiend Artisan is still just going to be a fucking 1-1, because it's bad most of the time. So I don't even know that that plan's good. Like, my stuff's not getting countered, my stuff is getting sent to exile or back into my library. I don't think this plan is good. I think early game velocity, get lucky, dodge Terminus or Supreme Verdict some portion of the time is just going to be better. Yeah. An awkward land. I need this to be Savannah. Alright, let's grab the Savannah and play out my Mana Dork. Kind of hope that my opponent leads on a Tundra that I can Wasteland. Like, Wasteland plus Outland Liberator is a way better turn than just like pass the turn, play Endurance. Negative. That's awkward. I really want to work towards playing these cards, which means playing Noble Hierarch this turn, but then I don't fully use my mana efficiently. This is what I'm doing. Not happy about it. Alright. No immediate Prismatic Ending. This will allow me to play Thalia and the Gitrog monster if I would like. I am going to do that. Bad versus another Swords to Plowshares. It's bad versus Back to Basics. I think I'm already losing to Back to Basics a good portion of the time, though. Like, it's hard for me to make this work right now. Alright. Thalia and the Gitrog monster is officially in play. Okay, it's not in play yet. It could get Force of Willed. Is in play. There's a Brainstorm. See if I just get Terminus out of this game. I do. It is miserable to, like, sign up to play a league with Maverick and then get paired against hard blue-white control twice. Matchup is legitimately atrocious for me. I don't like the play patterns here. Like, everything just, like, does not favor me. Playing a lot of creatures doesn't favor me. Holding back doesn't favor me. Endurancing doesn't favor me because, like, I'm gonna endurance my opponent and then they're just gonna, like, Snapcaster Swords and I'm gonna be sad. Watch. Send him away. Told you. I'll Swords my opponent's Snapcaster to keep the board clear. And then I lose Endurance. They lose their graveyard. Yeah. I think unless I naturally draw a Palace Jailer, I'm just not going to win this game. Oh, sure, that's fine. Narrator's voice, it's not fine. What is this getting? Grist? 1, 2. Do this for X's 3, get Grist. Take a quick look at the list. I can only get the green stuff here. Feels like it's Grist. Alright, X's 3. Grist. Grist minus. Please don't have a Brainstorm. Destroy Mentor. Oh shit, they didn't have a Brainstorm. That's super lucky. That means my Grist gets to live. But so many of my opponent's draws are just brutal here. And they do still just have 4 cards in hand, so presumably they have some number of answers to my creatures. They probably don't have Prismatic Ending, based on what I am seeing here. I'll make a critter and pass the turn. Sure, that's a little weird. Could have gone for a Ponder on their own turn. Might have had something like Force of Will there. Oh, that's a disaster. They bounce the token, they kill my Grist. And I decide how many more turns I want to play this game before conceding. Which honestly is how the deck has felt tonight. Like, I just can't beat these blue-white decks. And gameplay has just felt pretty bad. Like, I've lost this game, and it's just a question of, like, how long am I willing to pretend that I am going to top deck Questing Beast? Alright, there's another land drop from my opponent. Board's clear. Next turn, they can bounce their Snapcaster Mage to rebuy a Swords to Plowshares. They've got 3 other cards in hand. I mean, that's Questing Beast. Do this for X's 4. Get Force of Willed. Oh, get Counterspelled. Sure. And a follow-up Brainstorm. Just draw the Entreat. Just draw the Entreat so I can move to the next round. I know I'm dead. Not the Entreat. Okay, sure. Alright, there's another cantrip. I'll eat 2 from Snapcaster Mage. Life total's not really a problem here. It's just all about... Oh, sure. Okay, now I can concede. Opponent fetches, they make a billion angels. I don't win from there. Ugh. Alright, I'm going to keep this hand. Doesn't necessarily feel great. If my opponent plays a non-basic land, this hand slaps, because I just get to, like, Wasteland a non-basic land, play Thalia. My opponent says their bad brew is going to end up on a video, isn't it? You bet, friend. You bet. Damn. I'm going to lose my shit if we're playing against another blue-white control list. Okay, that's different. Not the biggest fan of what is probably happening over there. This is probably some sort of like Hull Breacher Echo deck or some sort of... maybe not. The Mox Diamond's fucking weird. Like, my first thought was Hull Breacher Echo, but those sorts of decks don't usually run Brainstorm. So, is this an Uro deck? Yeah. Probably Bant Control. I guess is slightly better for me than Great Blue-White Control, but they have sweepers. I'm still in very bad shape. Is probably Thalia into another Hierarch. Grist isn't playable yet. Grist will be playable next turn. Really, though, have to hope that my opponent is not playing sweepers. Like, things like Icefang Quaddle and presumably Uro make it less likely that that's going to happen. And, like, that's the defining difference between, like, what I'm hoping my opponent is playing and these blue-white control decks that I can just never, ever, ever, ever beat. Alright, we're chilling. I can stop this Box Diamond from being a thing. I think I'm starting my turn with an attack to see if my opponent wants to chump block for a lightning bolt worth of damage. Alright, let's yield to some of these. Alright, my opponent does not block. I think it's Grist. I think I'll just plus. Just create more bodies. And continue to make bodies. That got movement from my opponent for some reason. I guess I shouldn't. Technically. F6, I have endurance available. Ooh, that's very good against my deck. That's good against both copies of Thalia. Minsk and Boo's very strong. So costly that I don't have Questing Beast in my deck game 1 because I'm trying to play fun Thalia. Ooh, my opponent's thinking about minusing. Yeah, they're gonna minus. They're gonna kill my Fiend Artisan before it gets big. So, I think this turn looks like this. Play this. I do have this Wasteland though. I can Wasteland that Caracas. Okay, I think my line's a little different than I thought it was. Do that. Play Thalia. Load a mana. Minus this. Sacrifice a Hierarch. Destroy Icefang Coatl. Now there's a bunch of shit in the graveyard. Just cast an Endurance. Nuke my opponent's graveyard. Go to combat. Kill Minsk and Boo. Exalted Trigger. Alright. And I still have a Green Sun for Thalia and the Gitrog monster or whatever. But holy shit, I wish I had Questing Beast. Ooh, a Pithing Needle. That's okay. I got something that just immediately answers that. Alright. Bam, bam, bam. 6 onboard damage. Do this for X is 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, this is also just representing lethal next turn still. I haven't seen like a Swords to Plowshares or a Lightning Bolt or anything from my opponent yet. Pithing Needle means Urza Saga, probably. My anti-land stuff is, in theory, quite good. Alright, Questing Beast in Night of Autumn, in Hamster Tech, in anti-fetch land bullshit, in. There's probably Uro over there, so these are probably respectable. This is probably out. Life of the Loam's awkward. In theory, I want to be able to Wasteland like Urza Saga, but keeping Ramunap is fine. I'm going to want to go down some number of cards here. I think I have to go down one of these. Like the Hamster entering tapped is cool. But I think it's more important to be able to fight over like Uro and fight over fetch lands a turn earlier because my opponent's a Mox Diamond deck. This is good on Hamster and sometimes Construct, assuming Urza Saga is there. What am I cutting? Am I cutting Thalia? Cutting Thalia on the draw? Hoping to skip from 1 to 3 in this matchup when I'm on the draw. I don't think I mess around with Force of Vigor. I think the stuff attached to creatures is fine. Yeah, this hand lets me skip from 1 to 3, has a decent removal spell, has a secondary threat for turn 3. I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to keep the Collector Oof in the deck. My opponent is playing Mox Diamond. That is the turn 1 Brainstorm and Fetch. Is, relatively speaking, a rarity. I don't think I'm fetching basics in this matchup. And I think I do want to start immediately working towards Night being better. Like, the size of my creatures is very actively going to matter because of Minsk and Boo throwing hamsters at things. Alright, there's Life from the Loam. I'm going to let my opponent just do that. I don't want to 2 for 1 myself here. Bayou out of my deck. And I'm just going to go ahead and sorcery speed this, I think. I could do it in my opponent's upkeep, but then like some things like Brainstorm start to get a little weirder. Target you. Yeah, they do just have the Brainstorm anyway. Ooh, that's an Uro, which I am now exiling. So I guess that all worked out okay. That's an Urza Saga. A new Uro. We're doing okay against that as of right now. Just not that much stuff in the graveyard. And hopefully I can just like very easily out pressure that here. Attack for 4. I think attack for 4, play second fiend or second endurance. I can play second endurance while holding up Swords to Plowshares. My Fiend Artisan is a 1/1 right now and requires 2 turns worth of mana investment, which I'm not really game for. Oh, wow. Going to 9. I mean, if you picked up a Force of Will there, like, that's totally fine. Wasteland is good. Load of mana. I will, I think, go ahead and play the Endurance now so that I'm still holding up swords rather than wait for a different phase here. Shadow Spear is annoying, but acceptable. Mono Endurance Control is the deck that I am playing. Dash in for 6 with Endurance. Opponent goes to 3. Then it's their turn. They make a construct. Basically, I don't want to immediately remove the construct. I'm willing to let them gain a little bit more life off the Swords to Plowshare trigger so that they never gain life off of the Shadow Spear activation, which matters so much more. New Mox Diamond. Life from the Loam happens. I will basically counter that with Endurance. Target my opponent. Now, oh, they're not equipping Shadow Spear. That's weird. What does that mean? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is just Questing Beast. Questing Beast attack with 3 lethal bodies. Oh, I also just have like a Knight of Autumn. Yeah, that still lets me leave up Swords to Plowshares in case I'm wrong about something. Select Knight of Autumn. Destroy a construct token. And it seems like this is lethal, even through a piece of interaction. This is still lethal. Well, this deck is titled Best Mox Diamond Uro Deck, and let me tell you that it is not. At least you have a sense of humor about it. And this is my lethal damage, so I will not be casting any spells. That is a very large play point window to show me my 50 play points. Let's shrink that down. GG's. Alright, so we went 2-3 in the league, which is not an impressive record, but I think our pairings were perhaps not the best. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I think I like dropping Esper Sentinel for the extra Hierarchs. That allows me to be a faster deck. That said, it exacerbates my weakness to Supreme Verdict, Terminus, and Friends, which they're not like a super huge player in the Legacy metagame right now, but like they're definitely around. So I'm unsure whether or not it's correct to actually do something like that. Thalia and the Gitrog monster doesn't feel like a playable Legacy card, and like I very much was missing other utility cards like Questing Beasts that like maybe would have just straight up won me another game. The fact that by the time I play this, I'm usually out of lands unless I'm trying to do some sort of Life from the Loam nonsense means that I'm not getting any value the turn that it enters play. In order for it to start drawing cards, it takes another turn, and you have to sacrifice something else. Basically, no mode of this card was relevant in this league. And for something that I played multiple copies of and could tutor for, that's a super bad sign. And like, I want that card to be good, I want it to do things, but I think it's maybe more reasonable in a 4-color Loam Shell where like you do have Life from the Loam and you can get extra value off of making those additional land drops. And we just like could not in this deck, even with playing like Life from the Loam and Ramunap Excavator. It just didn't line up. It feels like this card is too slow for Legacy, and hopefully it does some stuff elsewhere. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. If you have any thoughts about deck building or anything like that, or you've had other experiences with Thalia, let me know in the comment down below. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya!